Obviously, extremely disappointed in the outcome of Saturday. We that was a game I think all of us expected to win. Not that we don't, all of them, but and despite playing so poorly offensively for most of the game, still had a chance to win it in the end. And credit to Iowa State. They made many more plays on both sides of the ball than we did. And so I'm sure you want to know where do we go from here. We've still got a bunch of seniors in that locker room that have bled, sweat, and cried for this program, and we owe it to be determined to correct the mistakes that were made, and do our best to go 1-0 against Baylor this week, a top 25 team, and deservedly so. And that's, again, 18 to 22-year-old kids are pretty resilient, and they're all competitors, and they understand that we've got a game to play this week against an in-state opponent that's only lost one game, and that was by 3 points last week. So they understand the difficulty that lies ahead of them, and pretty somber around the facility yesterday, as it should be when you lose. But after we watched the film and got coached up, and we had a pretty on-point practice yesterday. And so the thing that we have stressed to them, you're not ever going to be defined by when you get knocked down. You're always going to be defined by how you get back up when you do get knocked down. And so this will be a good challenge for us to see what we're made of in terms of responding to being knocked down. I do want to clarify something. It's been eating at me for 2 days, and Brian, you had asked me post-game about being out-coached, and I had taken that to be, hey, were we fooled? Were we tricked, duped, whatever it is? And I didn't feel that way. But when you lose a game, any game, you're out-coached. And so I do want to clarify kind of the context of what I understood that question to be. And but anytime you lose a game, you're out-coached. And from player execution, that's our job, to get them executed well, to play calls, to play tendencies, to you name it. All of it is on us. Injury update, Anthony Cook does have a tibiofibular sprain, very similar to what Caden Stearns had, so he is listed as doubtful. Colin Johnson still listed as doubtful with the hamstring. The good news is Junior Anguilau was back at practice yesterday. You're talking about a guy that returned to practice 8 days after a grade 2 MCL sprain. So if you want to look for a tough SOB on our team, we've got a lot of them, but Junior Anguilau certainly is one of them. Remarkable what he was able to do and the time and commitment he put in to his rehab, because it means that much to him to be out there with his teammates fighting to get a win this week. Questions?
Raise your hand if you have a question. Coach, after watching the film, what did you see about the run game for it to disappear like that, and what do you have to tweak or change going forward?
We had hats on hats for the most part, and we did, early in the game, against a defense like that structurally, 5-yard, 7-yard gains are they're good runs, and the issue was we had sprinkled in there way too many TFLs early, and some of those were communication issues in terms of who we were blocking, and then some of those were fundamental issues with how we were blocking it, and so I think you saw a unit offensively that couldn't get out of its own way, with a bunch of self-inflicted wounds that, it was not anything that we had not practiced. The coverage adjustment, the biggest coverage adjustment they made was with their Sam linebacker, number 23, and kind of where he was playing and where what we call the Joker jersey, I think it was 33 in their game, had been number 12 part of the season. They were really doing a good job trying to take the bubbles away from Devin that had been such a big part of our run game, and credit to them for that. But it was a confluence of things. If it was if everybody was on the same page from a communication standpoint, a guy missed his block. If 4 guys made their block and one guy was not on the same page, then we had an issue. Or we would block it all perfectly, and the back hit the wrong hole, or we got the back to the free hitter, as we call them, and they made some really, really good one-on-one tackles on our running backs too. So it was a lot of things.
Tom, can you take us through how the offensive game plan is formulated, like who all's involved? You've obviously got Fedora and Coleman on your staff as analysts. Like, how does that process work? And then even in the in-game with the adjustments, is that, I know it's been collaborative, but if you could just take us through like who's involved in the formation.
Well, yeah, we're all involved. I think even young coaches like Zach Cooter and Jordan Salkin, they do a ton of kind of deep digging in terms of, hey, we understand that they line up in this look 78% of the time to this formation, but how does it change when the back is offset here? How does it change when the tight end is maybe in a different alignment? And so those guys are big for us in terms of, like I said, the deep digs. And then, just to take you behind the curtain a little bit, the Herb Hand, Derek Wareheim, Stan Drayton at 7 a.m. on Mondays. They go down and watch cut-ups in the O-line meeting room and try to formulate some run game thoughts. Myself, Tim Beck, Larry Fedora, and Andre Coleman are kind of watching formations for big picture and blitz tips, front tips, coverage tips. Who are they from a personality standpoint? And then Coach Merringer and Coach Meekins, they separate and they watch for a lot of personnel in the back end. Who do we attack? How do we attack them? Coverage adjustments to different formations, and then we get back together about 10, 15, kind of all in the same room, and put our thoughts together and just kind of have a round table discussion on that. We try to, this is all just first and second down, what we call CNN, competitive, normal, meaning the game is still competitive. So you're not breaking down film of a 45-0 ball game with third stringers in there. The field position is normal, so it's not backed up and it's not red zone or goal line. And then the down and distance is normal, so first and 10 and second and 7 or less. And then, situationally, we look at third down, red zone, goal line, and off schedule, which would be first and more than 10 or second and more than 8. Sometimes we get to it late Monday night. Other times it waits till Tuesday morning, but we don't practice that until Wednesday, those situations. And then so you try to narrow down to, I think we had, 12 runs on first and second down, and not different run schemes. It could be inside zone, but from 3 different formations, and wide zone from a different motion or formation. And then you always try to have a couple quick game passes, a couple move the pocket passes, a couple deep play action shot back passes, a couple screens, and a couple intermediate drop back passes to where your throw game package on first and second down is somewhere between 14 and 16. And so I don't know if you want me to get in any more detail than that, but that's kind of a typical Monday/Tuesday morning.
Up front, Mark.
Hey, Coach. I know you say that, or you've said before, that the only opinions that really matter are those that are inside your locker room and offices, but you do have a disgruntled fan base that you guys are sitting at 6-4, and you have a fan base that this will be the 10th straight year where they've had at least 4 losses within a season. So what do you say to those people who support you guys but are a little bit disgruntled about where the program is right now?
Well, they have every right to be, if they are true supporters. We have not played to the level of our expectations, and if you're a fan of us, you probably have very similar expectations, and we haven't met those expectations thus far. So, I guess they have every right to have that opinion.
There, front, Brian.
Yeah, Tom, when you describe the breakdowns in the run game, those sound kind of shocking for this to be game 10. I mean, why do you think there are so many issues like you're describing that sound basic and sound like coaching issues?
Yeah, everything's a coaching issue. I think, having to play your 6th offensive lineman in there and have, that. Again, none of these are excuses. You asked for reasons. I'm going to give you a couple. Having 2 guys in there in the starting lineup that for the first time all year were playing those positions, I think did affect a little bit. I think the uniqueness of the defense, again, I likened it last week to getting ready to for a defense to play a triple option offense in 1 week. It is extremely unique, but certainly nothing that we hadn't practiced. So yeah, and then I think there's a level of human nature that kicks in when you start getting frustrated. You start pressing, and those are all things that can derail the run game.
Sure. And I definitely wanted to ask again because I'm curious about the last drive. Well, having watched it again, I guess what I still don't get why you guys had such great success, pushing the pedal to the metal and having Sam throw it. Why go conservative there when the run game had not worked all night long, really?
Had we thrown 3 incomplete passes and let 30 seconds run off the clock, I'd be answering a lot harder questions than I am right now. We called a quarterback run where we had an extra blocker that we didn't fit properly. We jogged an extra tight end out to try to get another hat, something we hadn't done all game, or only a couple times all game, and did not have success. But at that point in the game, time is a factor. It is a humongous factor, and we were playing pretty dang good defense. To hold a team to 2 touchdowns at home, one of them being on a crazy scramble coverage bust. We felt like time, and we felt confident. Regardless of how we had been running the football throughout different games in our tenure here, we have been able to do that at the end of the game at a very, very successful rate. You'll remember 2 years ago against Kansas State, we chewed 6 minutes and some odd seconds off the clock. This year against Kansas State, we chewed 6 minutes and some odd seconds off the clock. And so we felt like the right thing to do was to use the clock to our advantage and make them use one, if not more, of their timeouts. And then the third down play, you throw a tunnel screen that's, you're probably going to be 99% completion percentage on it, and you're getting it in your best player's hand, and their nose guard makes an unbelievable play to have a zero nose, get a pass breakup on a tunnel screen. That's an excellent individual effort. But no, to use the clock was the prudent thing to do, because again, we 3 straight incomplete passes would have been a disaster at that point.
Middle, Bob?
At the end of last year, especially leaving New Orleans after the Georgia game, it felt like you had established your identity of what you wanted to be here as the physical nature of this football team. Why do you think you haven't been able to consistently, I know you've done it at times this year, but why do you think the physical nature of this team hasn't established that identity this year?
We haven't coached it well enough. I do think there was a time when we were very, very banged up, and again, not an excuse, but you're asking for reasons, and I'm trying to give you the best ones that I can, and and even getting some of these guys back, they're playing hurt, and they're playing through a lot of stuff, and I commend them for that. But we certainly, you hit the nail on the head. We have not played to the level of physicality consistently that is our expectation, and that's our job to coach it better.
On your left, Dan?
Tom, I was wondering about your thoughts on how Malcolm has kind of performed in Colin's absence throughout the season, and also, do you have an opinion or any thoughts on Devin not being named a semifinalist for the Blitnikoff?
Yeah, Malcolm has done well. You saw Marcus Washington start the game too. That's a young man with a really, really bright future here, and Malcolm, gives us some advantages, obviously, with his catch radius and size advantage. He'll be the first to tell you he busted a few routes and was uncharacteristic of him because he is such a smart guy. And then I don't know how you leave off the guy's leading Power 5 in catches, leading the country in broken tackles. He's leading the country in third down receptions. And you're telling me he's not one of the 20 best wideouts in the country. It's a shame. I don't know what the criteria is then. I'm going to have to call whoever the committee that deals with the Bolitnikoff and say, what does a guy need to do to get on that list, at least the semifinalist. But the first I heard about it was on the conference call right before this, and shocking is the only thing I can say is, I have no idea how that can happen.
On your right, Cedric.
One time you've used the term come out with your hair on fire. Other coaches use that too, which we take to mean ready to go. You've been outscored 21-0 in the first quarter, last 2 games. What's the disconnect there, and how dangerous is that going into a game against a really good offense in Waco?
It's very dangerous, obviously. I think the disconnect is offensive rhythm. We've got to do a good job of getting our players comfortable. We've got to do a good job of making our players feel like they don't have to be perfect. I thought the mentality was great. Obviously, the ball gets kicked off and it wasn't. So we've got to examine, and I think the best way to, the simplest answer is get the offense in rhythm, get the quarterback in rhythm, and then on defense, maybe keep some of the calls pretty simple so they can get their feet wet and not have to think and fly around.
Here on your left. Alex.
Yeah, I know hindsight's 20/20, and I don't want to get into what ifs, but situationally, there in the first half, what needed to be different in order for you to send Cameron Dicker out, try and get your first point of the game rather than go for it in 4th and short?
Well, we had game planned for that scenario, 4th and 1 to 2. This was the play we were going to call, and this was the look that we expected. And we've got the ball in our best downhill runner's hands, and felt like we could get 2 yards. And just like most of the night went, at that point, I didn't know how the rest of the night was going to go. Had that situation occurred later in the game, it probably would have been a much easier decision to send him out to attempt a field goal. But obviously in hindsight, it was a poor decision.
Middle, Ed.
Coach, a lot of coaches talk about don't let one loss turn into 2. How do you motivate these guys when it's unlikely a trip to the Big 12 championship? How do you motivate? I know you talked about the seniors, but how do you motivate 18-year-old guys to say, let's get out and get up for this game against Baylor? What do you do?
It's not harder than probably what you guys may think. These guys are competitors, and losing is embarrassing, and nobody wants to lose. So they're gonna. You appeal to every fiber of competitiveness that they have in them, and that's what I told them in the team meeting yesterday. I said, if you've got an ounce of competitiveness in your body, then getting motivated to play a game, to go 1-0 against an in-state team that's in the top 25 on the road. If you can't get motivated for that, you're probably playing the wrong sport.
Got time for 2 last ones, Kirk and then Roger.
Tom, would you think there'd be a clearer picture of what the team's identity and strengths are at this point? And are you frankly stunned the program's not further along than it is right now?
Did I think we would have a clearer identity? Yes. And am I stunned? No. I knew that we had a difficult schedule. I knew that we had a lot of inexperience defensively, and then especially when the rash of injuries hit, kind of early in the season. Disappointed that we couldn't overcome those things better to this point. We still have 2 regular season games and a bowl game to continue to improve overcoming some of those issues, but I would not use the word stunned.
What would you say the strengths are?
Well, I still think, despite the lack of performance on Saturday, I think we can be a very good offense. I thought our defense showed a lot of signs of life here these last, 7 quarters. I know the last drive was awful. I mean, gut-wrenching. But, again, to hold a team in their house to 2 touchdowns, especially when the offense wasn't giving you any kind of help, and then to hold Kansas State through the final 3 quarters of the ball game to 3 points. I think there's a lot of positives that can be taken from that side of the ball. I think the defense wound up the Iowa State's offense was 3 of 14, I believe, on 3rd down conversions. We held them to 3 field goal attempts, kept them out of the end zone for the most part. The first drive of both halves, and that was it. And that was the only time they found the end zone. So I think there's signs of life there where there hadn't been. And I think, we have shown throughout the season, especially against good defenses, that we can be a good offense. And we've got to get back to that. So I do think we have some strengths, and we're, especially defensively, we're continuing to build ourselves back up.
Last one, in the middle, Roger.
Tom, when you look at Baylor, what has made them 9-1, top 15, the ability to win a lot of close games? And obviously they're dealing with a lot of their own disappointment going into this week too.
Yeah, their season has been eerily similar probably to ours, other than, they've been able to win those close ones. They've found a way to win, a couple overtime games in conference play. They blocked a field goal to win the game against West Virginia. So I mean they have found a way at the end of games to make plays on both sides of the ball when it matters to get the wins. And then their defensive front, the 2 guys especially, 93 and 99, they're guys that you got a game plan for. I mean, they are real dudes that are going to be an issue that we have to make sure that we're buttoned up in how we're going to block them and who we're going to block them with, and what that allows them to do. Again, it's a very similar philosophically to Iowa State, where they're going to almost exclusively be a 3-man front and drop 8 guys into coverage, keep everything in front. The vertical pass game is going to be very, very difficult to manufacture. And then on the last thing on that side of the ball, man, they fly around. They're not the biggest guys, but man, are they physical, and they can run, really, really run, and will hit you. And then again, there's 8 of them back there, with only 3 down linemen. And then offensively, the scheme very similar to us, a little bit more 10 personnel with 4 wide receivers, but when they do play with a tight end, very similar concepts to us, and very similar quarterback. Obviously, he's the gas that makes their engine go, much like ours is, and he's having a great season. And can run around, make some plays with his feet. And the receiver, again, I mean, Again, it's like, just another day in the Big 12 with a great quarterback with a potentially all-conference receiver in Denzel Mims. And so we got to know where he's at all times. And then obviously the quarterback, we've got to find a way to slow him down a little bit. I don't know how you leave off the guys leading Power 5 in catches, leading the country in broken tackles. He's leading the country in third down receptions. And you're telling me he's not one of the 20 best wideouts in the country. It's a shame. I don't know what the criteria is then. I'm going to have to call whoever the committee that deals with the Bolitnikoff and so what does a guy need to do to get on that list, at least the semifinalist. But the first I heard about it was on the conference call right before this, and shocking is the only thing I can say is, I mean, I have no idea how that can happen.